This is Blog the Art Blog, a discussion of taboo, controversial, and singular topics. I am the keeper, David J. Landry. Today I had the honor of speaking at the Literary Research Association's National Conference in regard to the life-size graphic novel that I created. I never imagined that while writing the terrible puns into the dialogue of my graphic novel, that I would one day be speaking in front of a group of academic scholars regarding that graphic novel. My passion for sequential art began as soon as I was able to read. Even as a young kid, I was inspired by the idea of creating a narrative that uses a medium that incorporates visual art, literary elements, auditory cues through the use of onomatopoeia, and invites the audience into the narrative process through the use of panels. The author Scott McCloud put it best when he wrote, "The heart of comics lies in the space between the panels, where the reader's imagination makes still pictures come alive." The invisible spaces between the panels is just as important as the illustrated panels themselves. You, the reader, fills in the story through your own experiences and knowledge. Each individual has a different experience in between the panels. That's the magic of sequential art. The story is not complete until you read it. As a comic artist, I was frustrated to find a lack of interest in sequential art in our libraries, and surprised that the fine art world considered comic art to be lowbrow. Sequential art is not perfect by any means. Critical observation of traditional American comics have shown its propensity towards violence, sexism, and inflexibility in a Caucasian male-dominated genre of literature. Yet, thanks to great innovators such as Art Spiegelman, Alex Ross, G. Willow Wilson, and Neil Gaiman, there have been great leaps towards diversifying both the subject matter and the audience base of sequential art. In 2011, I took that frustration and I turned it into a challenge to bridge the gap between the world of fine art and the misunderstood medium of sequential art. I conceived of a very ambitious project, a life-size graphic novel. If art galleries would not display traditional comic art, then I would trick high society into reading a comic book by painting its panels on large canvases and then hanging those panels on their gallery walls as fine art. But simply making a comic book bigger was not enough for me. I wanted to inject more multimodality into a graphic novel than had ever been experienced before. The blank spaces between panels became three-dimensional levels between my panels. The characters were ripped from the pages and turned into actual physical costumes on display that the readers could interact with. Every detail of the story would surround the reader in a fully immersive environment. Creating the anomaly was nearly a 5-year project and required the help of all of my friends at Abrasive Media. This was probably the most diverse group of individuals that I had ever worked with. And that diversity ended up challenging me, as art tends to. I was confronted by my own ignorance on the subject of diversity. I, like many of my peers, had simply created the equivalent of literary blackface. I had not taken the time to study the cultures and stories within the diverse history of humanity. I had simply painted a range of colors into my own story and then patted myself on the back for being diverse. As we enter an era where we can no longer depend on our government leaders to support critical thinking, especially in the area of diversity, when isolationism is the rhetoric of today, it is up to us as individuals and as communities of academics to challenge ourselves beyond our own self-imposed borders, to tell each other's stories, to seek out each other's words. This doesn't mean abandoning our own words, but rather embracing the words of others as equal to our own. Not because we have to, but because we desire to. That's it for this week. Blog. We'll be back next week with another singular discussion. If there are any topics regarding art that you would like discussed on Blog, let me know in the comments. And, as with all social media, comments are not a place for hate or trolling. Doing so will earn you a dismissive pat on the head, followed by, "It's so cute that you believe that." Until next week, remember, no matter what color you paint them, the trees are unhappy.